Hello friends, my name is JJ. So on this channel we do a lot of talking about flags, usually by taking a look at weird or obscure ones and telling you where they come from or what they represent. But flag design is only half the story of flags. Flags are actual physical things after all, so there is also the story of flag usage, like what are flags even for? You might be surprised to learn that when you travel around the world, you find a lot of different answers to this question. So here in Canada, or America, or Can-America someday, how we use the national flag is pretty well known. It can be a patriotic outdoor accessory, a classroom decoration, a prop in a politician's official portrait, a cover on somebody's coffin, a pin on the lapel of a Republican TV host, and so on. You could say that in North American culture, we tend to think of the flag as something associated with like the government or politics, or a certain sort of like civic patriotism and good citizenship. But this is hardly the only way to think of the national flag. And in fact, a lot of countries around the world have their own ideas. Take the Scandinavian countries of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, for instance. Their flag traditions are way different than ours because in Scandinavian culture, the national flag isn't necessarily seen so much as a political patriotic symbol as much as it is a kind of more generic happy decoration representing good times. For instance, one very common use of the Scandinavian country flags is as a decoration at birthday parties. Birthday parties are a pretty big deal in Scandinavian culture in general, and flags have long been the go-to decoration for them. Let me read you this passage from a blog written by a British expat living in Denmark. One thing I really noticed when I first moved to Denmark was the ubiquitous Dannebrog, the Danish flag, which can be seen in particular abundance on the occasion of a birthday. It is very important for Danes to let neighbors and passers-by know of a family birthday by adorning all windows, doorways, hedges, trees, front garden, basically anything that can be seen from the street, with flags. The flag theme is then continued and developed inside. That is to say, all birthday paraphernalia can be purchased with patriotic printing. That's kind of weird, eh? Like if you saw a house like this in Canada, I doubt your first thought would be, oh yes, somebody's birthday. Decorating birthday cakes with flags is a hot thing in Scandinavia too, with all of their fancy Scandinavian cakes, making the rest of us look bad. It's an especially popular tradition in Norway, whose red, white, and blue flag is perhaps the most deliciously cakeable. And get a load of this, the Scandinavians are also really into using their flag as a symbol of high school graduations, which are another thing that's a really big deal over there. By the way, this has nothing to do with flags, but I just wanted to note that it is also a weird Scandinavian tradition for teenagers to wear these little sailor hats during their grad parties. No one really seems to know why. Sometimes they have the flag printed inside though. Now, longtime viewers of this channel might have noticed that I have these little Norwegian flags on my shelf back here. This is actually a traditional Norwegian Christmas tree decoration that one of my friends mailed me a while back. This is because flags are also a common Christmas decoration in Scandinavia, which once again reflects how in their culture the flag is a much more generic celebratory symbol than it is over here. I mean, I feel like if you put a bunch of American flags on your Christmas tree in the States, it would come off as sort of tacky or hickish. You know, like, yeehaw, we're having an all-American Christmas. Which I guess is kind of a commentary on the degree the American flag has become a much more culturally narrow or even divisive thing in the contemporary US. Anyway, speaking of divisive flags, how about the flag of Japan? Everyone likes the Japanese flag these days, but there was a brief period of time, right after World War II, in which their flag, and particularly the so-called rising sun variation of it, was considered a fairly offensive symbol of Japan's previous fascist regime. There were even calls to replace it with something new, like the Germans had done with their flag. But the Japanese said no, these flags actually predate the fascist government, so they shouldn't be regarded as particularly problematic, and I guess they won that argument. But one side effect of this is that the Japanese have also retained a few flag traditions that can sometimes seem a little unsettlingly militaristic in nature. The most famous one is probably their practice of wearing hachimakis, or flag bandanas, often with patriotic calligraphy slogans scrawled on. Though these things supposedly date back to samurai times, I think we in the West most closely associate them with suicidal kamikaze pilots during the war, which is in fact one way that they were used. And in fact, kamikaze is still a popular headband slogan to this day. But the main purpose of these headbands in contemporary Japanese culture is just as a kind of signifier of when someone is being like very focused or intense. All sorts of different types of Japanese people might choose to wear a flag headband for any number of reasons. Maybe some guy's in a karate match or a hot dog eating contest, or just showing off his sushi making skills, or maybe he's a student studying for a big exam, or a woman in labor. Yes, that's right, this is a thing they do. A lesser known Japanese flag tradition, meanwhile, might be what they call the good catch flag. Japan is of course a country that is very well known for fish, and there is a real culture of competitiveness among Japanese fishermen. Back in the day, a fisherman who got a particularly good haul would raise the Japanese flag on his boat to show off to all of the other fisher people, which again gets into how the Japanese flag often functions as this kind of macho symbol of strength and power. Anyway, these days a lot of fishermen really go nuts with this tradition, and today you can buy all these special custom good catch flags that are so larded up with so many decorations and slogans you can probably barely tell it's even a Japanese flag at all anymore. But check this out. Not all Japanese flag traditions even involve the Japanese flag. In Japanese culture, the various flags of the world are often just treated as these generic, colorful things that can be used as all-purpose decorations to brighten up any occasion, almost Scandinavian-like in that way. For example, my friend Lindsay sent me this picture of a package of little toothpick flags that she bought at the Japanese store. These are very popular things with the Japanese housewife set, who often use them to jazz up their kids' little bento box lunches, which is a big thing over there. I remember when I was in Japan, this was a gimmick that you would often see the restaurants pulling for the kids' meals. There would always be a little toothpick flag and like the tempura shrimp or something, you know, to make it more kawaii. Another popular decoration over there were these kind of flag bunting things, you know, where you have a bunch of little flags tied together on a string. This is another very popular generic Japanese decoration you tend to see at like kids' parties and stuff like that, just because it's very colorful and fun. For some reason, these flag things are also very associated with when like the kids do their sports days at school. I guess maybe because it reminds the kids of like the Olympics or something. In this little book of Japanese clip art I bought, they have some fun cartoons of Japanese kids playing their traditional school sports, like the baton relay, and of course the traditional two-man race with the giant papier-mâché Daruma doll. Man, there are a lot of traditions in this world, aren't there? And speaking of flag traditions in places I've been to, let me tell you about a weird one that they have in Holland. So the Dutch have a pretty show-offy culture, and one thing the Dutch people like to do is inform their entire Dutch neighborhood when their kid graduates from high school. And the traditional way they do this is to fly a Dutch flag outside of their house and hang their kid's backpack from the flagpole. This is a relatively new tradition in Holland, from what I understand, only dating back to like the 1970s or so. But today at least, the bag on the flagpole has become this very iconic Dutch symbol of the end of the school year, or even the month of June more broadly. I remember I was in Holland once in June, and I bought this very dark postcard. I can't find it right now, but I can redraw it for you. In the first panel, it was like, he passed, and then in the second panel, it was like, he failed. So obviously, this whole business of flag traditions is a very rich topic that we are only beginning to scratch the surface of. If your country has any particularly fun or unusual flag traditions, be sure to let me know in the comments below, and I will definitely make a sequel video someday. The other thing I want you to think about is, what kind of symbol is the flag in your country? Is it considered a very political symbol, like in America? Or something purely decorative and happy, like in Scandinavia? Or something warlike and macho, like in Japan? Or maybe something a bit kitschy, like in the UK? Or heavily restrained by taboo and caution, like in Germany? Or contested and controversial, like the flag of New Zealand? Keen to hear what you all got to say, and I will see you all next week.